Welcome back to PoPolitickin.com, your home for self-help meets hip-hop meets music. Make sure you subscribe. We're on Apple Music. We're on Spotify, YouTube. 1212 and place to be with TRISHES. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
No doubt. Talk about your name some.
My name, TRISHES. So TRISHES is the plural of Trish. So my actual name is Trish. And I created TRISHES to sort of express these different internal, often conflicting selves. So the TRISHES refer to the primal self and the spiritual self and the conscious self in between.
You a psychology major or something?
I wasn't. I just had like a lot of internal turmoil in my early 20s, and it was just like the way I dealt with it.
No, because actually I was reading your bio, and then it even said something about Freud in there. So I was like, she must be a psychology major or something. Then that
Yeah.
gaslight, I was like, you real deep over here already.
I think a lot about psychology and philosophy and anthropology. I think I'm just really fascinated with why humans do the things they do on several levels.
Hmm.
And psychology is one of those levels. And, there's there's a lot to dive into there.
So what's your hometown?
So I lived in Trinidad till I was 7, and then I grew up in San Diego, so not too far. I'm
Okay.
in Los Angeles now. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I'm in San Diego now. I'm in Oceanside.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I grew up in Carmel Valley.
Okay, I know what that's it. Okay. So what do you love about music?
Oh, that's a hard thing. I just feel like I feel closest to whatever divine presence there is when I'm experiencing art or music. And yeah, I've always been drawn to it as a medium of expression. But I think just um, the emotional communication of music is really special.
Okay. So just talk about your background. What year did you get involved with music?
I think I was singing when I was a really little kid. Like I just put together this spoken word video piece for my dad called Orange, and I went through all of this old footage, and in my dog is wrestling around. And in a bunch of them, everyone's like, sing, dance, entertain us, like when I was a little kid. So I was singing since I was little, and then I started playing piano around 11 or 12. And that's really when I started writing songs. And then I went to an art school for high school in San Diego, and I went to a music school for college as well.
Okay. And then who are some of your influences with music?
I think growing up as a kid, I was like really into like just pop music. I loved the Spice Girls and the Backstreet Boys and stuff like that. And then when I was a little older, I think like my preteens and teens, I got really into sort of like the more left of center piano vocal singer songwriter stuff. So like Regina Spektor and Fiona Apple. Loved Bjork. Um, so I definitely grew up more listening to that like piano based singer songwriter stuff.
How would you describe your music?
I think mine is it's like minimalist urban pop. Really concept based obviously, but in terms of sound wise, I go between like minimalism with like heavy percussion and a focus on a low end when I'm trying to embody more of that primal self, and then I go into heavier harmonic progressions and more elaborate arrangements when I'm trying to embody sort of that higher self, and then the happy medium between for to represent like the conscious Trish.
So what do you mean by that? Kind of go a little deeper on what you were just saying, the how what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the idea is well, like Freud's theory of the constructs of self, the primal self and the conscious self are like that devil angel. I don't like to think of it as like devil angel because I don't think the primal self isn't inherently bad. It's like a very necessary aspect of ourselves, but the conscious self is where we're distilling all this information from these other selves. So musically, I like to take the minimalist and more like luxe harmonies and sort of interpolate them to represent that conscious self. So like what is happening in your conscious mind a lot of the times. You're being affected by things, but there are deeper reasons, and you might not necessarily understand that at the time. It might be something that's like exposed to you later, or sometimes I think a lot of people don't actually dive in very deeply into why they're thinking or feeling certain things, and they might never expose those other layers of themselves.
So how can you dive in and understand why you're doing what you're doing?
I think there's a lot of different ways. I'm really big on meditation, but like therapy is great and being more and more normalized, which is awesome. I also think just like it's just taking the time to sit with yourself and your emotions. I think a lot of people don't do that. I think a lot of people take things at face value, and I'm guilty of the same. Often I don't want to sit down and be still and meditate because I don't actually want to deal with whatever it is that's going on in my head. And it's easier when you're just going and you're just living without examining, that unexamined life can be easier in a sense, but then I think a lot more difficult in another sense.
So you might describe your creative process when you're making music.
So it's typically more of like an intellectual academic process. So for Ego, which is my first EP that I released last year, that's based on 5 constructs that I felt that we developed or created to separate ourselves from this like animal primal self. So Ego talks about money and government and self-awareness and creativity and language. And with that type of project where I'm really focused on the concept, I decide first, like, what are the concepts that I feel like I need to talk about? What am I uniquely positioned to speak on? And like, what do I feel called to speak on? And then I dive into those topics, with reading and podcasts and classes, and often find myself writing essays about them, writing spoken word about them. And then when I feel like I've distilled sort of an opinion or like my thesis statement on this topic, that's usually like what the actual song is. But then other times, like Gaslight, I was just really sad, so I wrote that song.
Yeah, that song sounds sad. I read the description about it. I was like, damn. So can you talk about that song a little bit?
Yeah, so Gaslight and its predecessor, Caffeine, are definitely outside of the normal like TRISHES universe. One, in the fact that it is based on like romantic relationship, which isn't something I write about very often. And 2, in the fact that they were just like things that like poured out of me rather than that more like conscious intellectual process that I was just speaking about. So yeah, Gaslight, I was like pretty obsessed with this person, and I went to this party and he like ignored me and left with this other girl. And the next morning I wrote Gaslight, and that was like 3 years ago I wrote it. And then I recorded it about a year later with my friend Andy Lewis, who is amazing, and we recorded it in a studio he built in a shed outside of his parents' house in the UK. And we just like used all of these different weird sounds and manipulated instruments in different ways, and it was just like a really wonderful experience. And then the music video, which I'm incredibly proud of, is something that we filmed in May. And me and the co-creators, Kelby Isaacson and Freedom Dunn, we like met on Zoom like 2 or 3 times. We came up with the concept, we wrote up a shot list, and we enlisted 2 other dancers, and then everyone shot their footage on their own while we were in lockdown. And then I edited it, and yeah, so that's how all of Gaslight came to be.
So back to the story a little bit. So was this guy your boyfriend, or did you think he was your boyfriend? You just showed up. I gotta see who was in the wrong.
No, it was just this guy I was seeing, who I think is sort of a sociopath, honestly. And yeah, it was just a guy that was seeing, who I now know is like, it does this very often, like makes women feel like they're like he's very much like focused on them. Yeah, it was just really humiliating and like painful to be like ignored in that way. And I think it also just like woke me up to how like my sense of self is attached to others and like external circumstances, which is something that I don't necessarily like, which is something that like I would like to move away from.
Man, what are your current projects you're working on?
Oh, well, so Ego is the first album, and the Id is finished. I'm just figuring out when I'm releasing that. So I'm finishing up a music video for one of the songs from that. And I'm also kind of embarking on the journey of the next album, which is Super Ego. And that's more about our spiritual selves, where we derive our sense of morality, our ideologies, and where our moral selves like diverge, because I feel like we are generally raised with the very similar basic moral standards. So yeah, I've started recording Super Ego and writing Super Ego, and sort of just drawing and stuff, figuring out where that's going.
Yeah, I heard they was telling me, the staff was telling me about you was doing something with NRP right now.
Oh, Gaslight premiered on, wait, sorry, on what?
Yeah,
Gaslight premiered on NPR, which was really cool.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
tight. Well, how long has this video been out?
A week and a half now.
Okay, it just came out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what are your career goals? Where you see your career 5 years from now?
Well, my favorite thing is live performance. So I just want to travel a lot and play lots of live shows. I miss traveling a lot right now. And I also want to create more community-based experiences. So for Ego, I had these art music pop-ups, because I also make visual art that goes with my my music. So for Ego, it was 5 concepts, and then I made 15 pieces that went with it. And in
So like
different
paintings, or what are you making?
I do stippling, so I do like fine tip Sharpie stippling. I can show you.
Yeah, just show me.
Let's see which notebook has stuff in it. I think this has stuff in it. So let's see what's in here. Basically, stippling is just a way that so like these are just dots.
Wow. Really?
So these are just dots. Yeah. I can't show you closer.
How long you been doing that?
I've probably been doing visual art for like 2 years now.
No, I'm saying the dots thing, stippling. That's crazy.
For like 2 years. It's kind of the only visual art I really do. It's very meditative to me. So I did these art pop-ups, and you would check out headphones, and I also do a lot of spoken word, so I would like talk to you, and you would go to these 5 different stations. there would be questions, and you'd have these cards to fill out about like what are you and your community's experience with government and language and money. And then I would also have a local artist contribute art that pertained to their community's relationship with each of those constructs. And then there would be like a small performance element like in the evening. And I just loved doing that. I loved the discussions it brought up between different communities. And I definitely want to do more of that, and just like more activism in general. Really want to find my place and how I can utilize my abilities the best to help the causes that I believe in. And yeah, those are kind of what I want to do in my future.
So what are your interests outside of music? You was kind of talking about it already. What are your interests?
Yeah, so along with the music, I do spoken word and I do visual art, but I really want to dive more into my activism. So for a while, I was working with refugee families and helping resituate them here. And then unfortunately, with the current administration, now we're barely getting any refugees. I've also worked with some asylum seekers at the border. But then once COVID started, I didn't really know where to go. And then, the movement for Black Lives like picked up in this huge way, and I really want to put time and effort and focus into that. But I've also been volunteering with the NoHo Home Alliance, which is like a local organization that that helps people experiencing homelessness. So I just volunteer with like their like hot lunch program. So it kind of, I'm navigating like where we're at, and like what's possible with COVID, but I would definitely love to jump back into the work with asylum seekers once that's like a thing that's safe for them. Yeah, but right now I think especially with the eviction moratorium ending and the expanded unemployment benefits ending, I definitely feel like in my community homelessness is going to pick up, and so just getting plugged in with the needs of that community, I think is really important right now.
I just want you to share what's some of your favorite books?
Ooh, I got lots of them. My shelf is right there, so I'm gonna look. Freedom is a Constant Struggle by Angela Davis. It's a great one.
Came out hard.
What?
I said you came out hard. You came out with a good book.
Known and Strange Things by Teju Cole is great. I love where is it? I don't see it. But there's a book called Last Ape Standing, which is similar to a really popular book called Sapiens, but it's shorter. And I don't know, I think the writer of Sapiens is also kind of pretty funny, but I really like Last Ape Standing a lot. I'm reading Sapiens right now, really enjoying it. I just finished Thick and Other Essays, and that was great. Ishmael, love that book. Yeah, those are like my faves. Those are my faves. There's a book of poetry called No Matter the Wreckage by Sarah Kay that's really beautiful. Yeah, those are my recommendations.
All right, then I want you to just share an interesting life story that you went through. Anything?
Oh, interesting life story. I have like a crazy life story, but I'm not sharing it today. I don't know of any interesting life stories. My life has been like pretty cool, but also mundane in a lot of ways. Like what? I don't know. My life's not interesting, I guess.
I get different stuff. I don't know anything. And like, it could be something positive you want to share with the listeners, just anything.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you about last summer. I was on tour in Eastern Europe, and I got to play at a festival that was my friend Felita booked the acts. So it was in Bosnia. It was like an hour and change outside of Sarajevo.
Mhm.
And but I think all of the acts were from Los Angeles because she booked them from Los Angeles, flew us out there, and it was just like the wildest experience. um the festival was like a wellness yoga festival that also had music, so it was at this like sort of like summer campy resort, and there were just like farm animals everywhere, but also like wild animals everywhere. And it's less of a story and more of just like a really cool experience. And then I met some of my best friends on that trip because we were out there for like 10 days. So the festival was like 3 days, but we went out there like a week early and we did some press and we did some like shows in the city. And it was just like a wild experience of being in Bosnia for the first time, and learning about the war there, and spending time with these people, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's a good story. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a point to it, but it was just a great experience, and I miss traveling. And I think Eastern Europe's like a really amazing, magical place.
All right. And then what advice would you give to new artists?
I think new artists, just you need to lean into what makes you unique, and also like what is your unique perspective that you can offer the world. I think there is a lot of content in the world, and I feel like people don't pause very often to say, am I the person to be saying this, and does this need to be in the world? um, I think you really hit your stride and find your strength when you think, what gives me a unique perspective? How can I speak on that? And how will that affect myself and my community? Um, yeah, just leaning into what makes you different.
Mhm. What would you like to say to your fans and supporters?
Oh, you guys are the best. I can't believe you guys listen to what I have to say, and I appreciate it very much. And especially during quarantine, it's been like really, really awesome. Just like chatting with everyone. Like I definitely like get to like dive into my DMs more, and my followers are just like awesome. Just like really cool, creative, smart, interesting people, and I love being able to talk to them.
And then anybody just not hearing about you now, why should they go follow you?
I think if you would like art that is, so there's that quote about art that it's supposed to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, right?
Hmm.
So if you want art that is sort of a little difficult, but will be expansive, I think, intellectually or spiritually, I think that I'm a good person to follow, and I don't have all the answers, and I don't have even very many answers, but I have a lot of questions. Um, and I think I'm asking good questions, and we're having good conversations as a community. And yeah, I'm really like participatory in that way, that I really want to know what you have to say, and think about the things that I care about, that I speak on.
And I said, that's a good, I laugh because most of people, all they say most of the time is like, oh, because I'm dope. Go follow me. So that was funny. I was like, you actually gave a good answer. That was tight.
I have the longest winded answers. I'll just ramble for ages.
I want to say thank you for coming through politicking with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
No doubt. What's your social media and everything?
So everything is at Trishes Music, TRISHES Music, and my website is trishes.com.